2 months had passed in less time than it took me to count them, and the final one was gone before I even flipped the page on my calendar, and suddenly we had to be out of the apartment in a week. I couldn't believe it. I avoided mentioning it to Michael, but finally I knew I had to, because moving day was hastening toward us like a pack of puppies after a stinky pile of freshly worn shoes. I guess he must have been aware of it too, though, because he made a point of arranging a meeting every day that final week. "I'm almost done with the cleaning," I announced when he arrived on the next to last day, wrenching off my rubber gloves. We'd spent so little time there that there wasn't much to do, just mopping and vacuuming and scrubbing the tub and toilet. But I don't know what to do with the linens. Somehow the idea of bringing them home wasn't very appealing. How could I ever use them there? He leaned in the bathroom doorway and looked contemplative for a moment, his beard wagging slightly as he nodded in thought. "Don't you have some place you could store them? I mean, they might be useful to have someday." "The comforter's the big problem. It's huge folded." I had no spare bed to lay it on, and although we had plenty of space at home, it would be hard to hide a heretofore unseen, enormous, and gleaming white bed cover. But my logistical difficulties began to fade in importance in Michael's palpable presence. I finished washing and drying my hands, and went over to him with arms outstretched. He circled his arms around my waist, pulled me close, and held me tightly. "Michael," I proffered tentatively, raising my face from where it lay buried in his shoulder. "What is it, Kate?" he answered, brushing his scruffy cheek against mine as he turned kind eyes toward me. "Are we done yet?" He didn't answer, just stood there silently embracing me for a long while. Finally he said, "Come here," and led me into the bedroom and drew me up onto the bed after him. We lay close together, facing each other, arms and legs intertwined. His hair looked especially red against the white of the pillowcase that day, and it struck me how attached I'd grown to that color combination. "This was what we said, right? 3 months and that was it?" He had reached up with one hand and was gently stroking my hair. "That's what we said." Damn, I thought. He was ready to go. I wasn't. "We can't go on like this forever." "No, I suppose not." He was really going to let it end then. I felt the thread of tears coming on, and I pulled closer to him so I could hide my face against his chest. I tried desperately to think of something else. His beard was tickling my cheek, and I gathered it up with my one free hand and tugged it gently. That was all I had to hold him by, one wispy handful of hair, and when I released it, he'd be gone. The lump in my throat grew bigger, and I swallowed forcefully. I would not cry. I fought it hard. He was kind enough not to say anything else, so I didn't have to talk, and I guess eventually I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I knew he was waking me and saying he had to go. We hadn't even had sex. "When are you meeting the landlord tomorrow?" he wanted to know. "At 10. "Do you want me to help you with the towels and bedding and stuff?" "Nah," I said. "I'll wash everything before I leave." "Okay." He paused and made a face as if he was about to deliver a speech, and I didn't think I could stand that, so I cut him off abruptly, saying, "Let's not make a big thing, okay?" He nodded. A kiss, a hug, and he was gone again. I hated saying goodbye to that guy. I hated him, too, for making me. I stayed up late. I stripped the bed and washed the sheets and towels and cleaned the floors, and still had energy left over, so I decided to wash the windows, too. When that was done, I noticed that the shelves were dusty, so I went after them with a damp cloth, and if I was doing shelving, I figured I ought to be thorough and wipe down the crown molding as well. The refrigerator wasn't very dirty, but I gave it a once-over anyway, and I scrubbed the kitchen sink and then broke out the furniture polish and shined up the coffee table, desk, and dresser the student had left behind, although they would probably get parked out by the dumpster come morning. While I was cleaning, I turned the radio up loud enough to force the downstairs neighbors to bang on the ceiling until I lowered the volume, and I drank the last several beers he had left me and tried not to think about who had brought them. It was after 1 o'clock when I finally dropped, fully dressed, onto the bed, exhausted. Since the sheets were already clean and folded, I simply kicked off my shoes and wrapped myself up in that snow-white comforter, and the only thing I recall thinking before I passed out was that maybe I should keep the comforter in the trunk of my car for emergencies, because it didn't matter anymore if it got dirty. I woke around 4, my mouth tasting strongly of stale beer. Snow was falling outside the undraped bedroom window. The sky was that murky orange it gets when it's packed with snow clouds, but for once I didn't think that was neat. It made me feel cold and lonely. Tomorrow night I would be with Tom, and knowing that lifted my spirits slightly. I didn't really need Michael after all. I had a perfectly satisfactory life without him. Maybe it would be duller, emptier now. It was even possible that I was less sad about losing him than I was about not being able to look forward to seeing him again. That and the fucking. I would definitely miss the fucking. I thought back to the first night we'd spent together, and I couldn't help it. Soon I felt myself reaching down into my underwear and between my legs. I hadn't masturbated in quite a while. Somehow I'd gotten it into my head that it was more fun to conserve my sexual energy when I was obliged to share so much of it these days. But I supposed I would be keeping more of it to myself now and should stay in practice. It felt pretty good. Not as good as Michael, but before I got very far along, I had drifted back into sleep. When I woke again, it was quite late, nearly 8:30. I was still facing the window, and I could see that although the snow had stopped, the sky remained heavy with clouds, which imbued the air with a dusky quality. And on my other side, Michael was crawling into bed with me. I rolled over to face him. "You smell like beer," he commented. I decided that drinking it was the easiest way to move it. I looked at him hard. What was he doing here? "What are you doing here?" I said. I'd wanted to phrase it a little more gently, but I was still groggy, and that was the best I could do. "What do you think about trying to find another sublet?" he proposed, his eyes bright. I heard the words, but my brain wasn't absorbing their meaning. "A few more months would be nice, don't you think?" I didn't answer. I didn't know what to say. He faded a little. "You don't want to." And then I finally understood what was happening, and I burst into a huge grin and cried out, "Yes, yes, I want, I want!" I might have gone on like that for some time, but he smothered my mouth with his and dug me out of the wrinkled clothes I had slept in and fucked me extra, extra good like I really deserved it. And then it was almost time to meet the landlord, and I shooed him off to work so I could get ready. As I was bundling up the comforter, I detected wetness and noted that there were fresh sex juice drippings on it, and I found that charmingly obscene. And when I got home after work and looked in the mirror, I discovered 2 new smile lines on my face and realized that I must have had a very, very good day.